Welcome to the Weekly Wisdom with John Sampson podcast. I am your host, and today we're looking to answer one of life's most persistent questions. What drives us to act, to strive, to grow? But before we can find a way forward, we have to talk about the enemy of this drive. I'm talking about demotivation, that heavy, dragging sense of what's the point? Or knowing exactly what you should do, but just not being able to do it. It's a universal struggle, something that everyone from students to CEOs to creative artists has faced before. I know I've been there. I found myself working for people who didn't value my contributions as I thought they should, or others whose moral compass pointed a little differently than mine. And at those times, it was hard to get myself going and keep pushing for that greatness that I desired deep down. Demotivation isn't just an inconvenience. It's a fundamental barrier to well-being and achievement. And a lot of times we see it as laziness, but that word is misleading. As psychologist Devin Price notes, laziness, at least in the way most of us generally conceive of it, simply doesn't exist. If a person's behavior doesn't make sense to you, it's because you're missing a part of their context. And that context is vital. A persistent lack of motivation leads to very real consequences: anxiety, depression, poor health, stalled careers, and an overall directionless life. At work, disengaged employees cost companies a lot in lost productivity. Unmotivated students see their performance plummet, hurting their future. And in our personal lives, our dreams get stalled and our healthy routines fall apart. The lack of drive can be debilitating, and the cost to our lives is substantial. So, what causes this hollowing out of our will? What is the missing context? First, let's look at what psychologists have to say. And what they say is that, in truth, what looks like a lack of willpower is actually a complex tangle of fears, beliefs, and unmet needs. Michelle Maidenberg, a clinical psychologist, has mapped a range of common barriers that sabotage our motivation, and it's likely you've experienced more than one of them. First, there's fatigue and burnout. This is emotional and physical exhaustion that erodes our ability to focus and complete tasks. When you're running on empty, of course you don't feel like doing anything. You just don't have the mental bandwidth to get there. Then there's fear of failure. The anxiety about not measuring up can be so powerful that it completely freezes initiative. If you're afraid to fail, it feels safer not to try at all. A lot of times this is tied in with perfectionism, where we set impossibly high standards, and by doing so, we inadvertently paralyze any action from the start. We also have a collection of limiting beliefs. These are thoughts and narratives often absorbed in childhood that tell us we aren't capable. If you've been told you're not a math person, or you'll never be good at that, those voices can become a powerful internal barrier. This is referred to as a fixed mindset. The belief that our skills and circumstances can't change, which makes any effort feel pointless. If I'm just not a math person, why should I bother putting in the extra effort? I'll never get good at it anyway. Finally, there are more subtle psychological needs that, when unmet, kill our drive. A lack of concrete values. When you don't know what truly matters to you, all effort just feels pointless. Overwhelming goals. Without a clear path, a goal feels more like a burden than a destination. And a lack of autonomy. Feeling micromanaged or powerless erodes our natural curiosity and drive. It's easy to mistake these for simple laziness, but they're really a cry for help from a mind that is dealing with very real psychological obstacles. Counteracting these barriers isn't about yelling at ourselves to just do it. It's about understanding the roots of the problem. And that's what we'll be doing in the next part of our discussion today. So first, let's acknowledge the fact that the problems we face today were grappled with by the world's very first psychologists, the ancient philosophers. Their insights into the human mind, or soul, laid the groundwork for everything that came after. Now let's begin with Plato. Plato believed that the root of all human motivation and all our internal conflict lies in the soul. And for him, the soul wasn't a single unified thing, but a composite of three distinct parts, often at war with each other. He gave us the metaphor of the charioteer. You have a charioteer who represents reason. This is the part of you that seeks truth, wisdom, and your long-term good. It's the voice that knows you should eat a salad, not a donut. Attached to the chariot are two winged horses. The first is the noble horse, which represents spirit or emotion. This part is the source of your courage, our ambition, and our drive for honor. It's the part that gets angry when you see an injustice or feels pride when you accomplish something difficult. It's a powerful force, and it's meant to be an ally to reason. Then there's the ignoble horse. This one is unruly and represents appetite or desires. This part is concerned with all our basic bodily needs and pleasures: food, comfort, and physical gratification. It's the horse that wants to drag the chariot down to the earth, while the reason is trying to guide it upward. Plato's key insight is that when we do something we later regret, like indulging in a harmful pleasure, it's not because we are simply lazy. It's because the different parts of our soul are in conflict, and the appetitive part has overpowered the rational part. This idea reframes our internal struggle. The goal of a good life for Plato is to bring these parts into harmony, allowing reason to rule, with the spirited part acting as its enforcer against the wild desires of appetite. Plato's most famous student, Aristotle, agreed that the soul had different parts, but his perspective on motivation was subtly but profoundly different. While Plato saw an eternal war, Aristotle saw a system that should work in harmony. Aristotle's philosophy of motivation begins with the concept of purpose. He argued that every action, every choice is aimed at some perceived good. This is a fundamental principle for him. And as he writes in the Nicomachean Ethics, every art and every inquiry, and similarly every action and choice, is thought to aim at some good. And for this reason, the good has rightly been declared to be that at which all things aim. The ultimate goal for humans, he says, is not a victory over our appetites, but a state of flourishing. This is not a feeling of pleasure, but the highest good, the fulfillment of our unique function as rational beings. So how do we achieve it? For Aristotle, motivation wasn't about defeating our desires. It was about cultivating them. He believed that humans have the unique capacity for rational choice, which separates us from animals. Our appetites and emotions are not enemies of reason, but a foundational part of the soul that needs to be educated and habituated. The virtuous person doesn't just act well, they want to act well. Aristotle teaches that this harmony between reason and desire is the very definition of a virtuous character. He said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit." For Aristotle, motivation is not a momentary lightning bolt. It is the steady, patient work of building habits that align our actions with our highest purpose. So Plato showed us a battle within our divided soul, and Aristotle taught us that true motivation comes from living a purpose-driven life. Now let's look at the Stoics, men like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, who didn't just theorize about life, they were tested by it, facing war, political turmoil, and personal tragedy. And in doing so, they forged a philosophy of motivation built on grit, resilience, and a radical kind of freedom. At the core of Stoicism is a single powerful idea. True motivation must be internal. While the world is chaotic and unpredictable, we have complete power over one thing: our own mind. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, used his private journal, his meditations, to constantly remind himself of this truth. He told himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the bedrock of his motivational doctrine. It means you can't control what happens to you, but you can always control your thoughts, your judgments, and your actions. For Marcus, a roadblock isn't a reason to stop. It's the very path forward. He believed that the mind could adapt and convert an obstacle into fuel. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is a powerful reframe that changes the way we look at setbacks. His fellow Stoic Seneca echoed this sentiment, seeing adversity not as a curse, but as a necessary exercise. He argued that challenges are the gymnasium of life. For Seneca, a person who has never faced hardship doesn't truly know their own strength. True freedom and motivation, he taught, come from the ability to withstand suffering and manage our desires, not from having every whim satisfied. Both Marcus and Seneca believed that motivation isn't a feeling that just happens to you. It's a discipline. It's a daily practice of training your mind to focus on what you can control, to accept what you can't, and to see obstacles as a chance to grow. While the Stoics found strength in self-control, a more modern philosopher offered a dynamic and, to some, a more controversial view of motivation. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche argued that the fundamental drive behind all life isn't just survival or pleasure. He called it the will to power. For him, this wasn't about dominating others, but about the drive to expand, to grow, and to assert yourself. He saw all of life as a constant process of becoming more. Nietzsche's most important contribution to our understanding of motivation is the concept of self-overcoming. We are not fixed creatures. We are beings who must constantly transcend our own limits. As he wrote, "And life confided the secret to me. Behold," it said, "I am that which must always overcome itself." This is a stark, powerful vision of motivation. It's not about finding calm or accepting your place in the world. It's about a dynamic, creative, and sometimes painful process of growing beyond who you are today. It's a call to channel your energy not into external control, but into constant, life-affirming self-mastery. So here we have the Stoics, who taught us to find strength through acceptance and inner discipline, and Nietzsche, who taught us to find strength through growth and self-overcoming. Now I want to bring all of these threads together and show you how this ancient wisdom provides the very philosophical foundation for the most powerful psychological theories of today, from cognitive behavioral therapy to the growth mindset. Then we'll combine these ideas and give you the blueprint for building motivation that lasts. Consider this parallel. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This isn't just good advice, it's the foundational principle of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. A central tenet of CBT is that our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are interconnected. And by changing our thoughts about an event, we can change our emotional and motivational response. It's a direct, unbroken line from the stone steps of ancient Rome to a therapist's office today. Similarly, Aristotle's idea that excellence is not an act, but a habit, is now a cornerstone of modern behavioral science. Psychologist and author James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, echoes this precisely when he writes, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." Both thinkers understood that sustained motivation isn't about a single heroic effort, but about the small, repetitive actions that build a durable system of behavior. Now let's look at a few other modern psychological theories you might have heard of and see how the ancients got there first. Self-determination theory, developed by psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, asserts that human beings have three basic psychological needs for intrinsic motivation: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Autonomy is the need to feel like you are the author of your own actions. This is a direct echo of the Stoic quest for freedom and self-mastery. For Marcus Aurelius, the truly free person was not a slave to their passions or to external events. Competence is our drive to master challenge. This resonates with Aristotle's idea of living a purposeful, virtuous life by realizing our unique function as rational beings. And relatedness is our need to feel connected. Aristotle in particular emphasized that we are social animals and that a good life is lived in a community. When these needs are met, motivation flourishes. When they're thwarted by a lack of control, a feeling of inadequacy, or a sense of isolation, motivation withers. Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck's research on the growth mindset, the belief that our abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work, is another perfect example. This idea that effort and learning from mistakes are the pathway to mastery is a modern restatement of Nietzsche's will to power. The drive to overcome itself is the same psychological engine as a growth mindset. This also ties directly into psychologist Albert Bandura's concept of self-efficacy, the belief in your own ability to succeed. For Bandura, the belief is what separates intention from action. It's the practical psychological form of the Stoics' inner citadel, the unshakable inner conviction that you have the power to act, regardless of your circumstance. Now let's add a powerful existential layer to our understanding of motivation. Few people understood the depths of human suffering and the heights of human spirit better than Viktor Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist and a survivor of Nazi concentration camps. His experiences led him to a theory that fundamentally challenges every other one we've discussed. Frankl believed that our primary motivation isn't pleasure, power, or even self-actualization. Instead, it is the will to meaning. He wrote, "Man's search for meaning is the primary motivation in his life and not a secondary rationalization of instinctual drives." Frankl observed in the camps that the people who survived were not necessarily the strongest or the smartest. They were the ones who had a reason to live, a loved one to reunite with, a book to finish, or simply a deep-seated desire to preserve their human dignity. This led him to a powerful conclusion, one often attributed to Nietzsche, but central to Frankl's work. Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. Frankl's logotherapy is based on three core ideas. The primary human drive is to seek meaning. We have the freedom to choose our attitude in any circumstance, no matter how dire, and life has unconditional meaning, even in suffering. His most profound insight is that meaning isn't something we invent, it's something we discover, and it's found in three ways. One is creative value, by creating a work or accomplishing a deed. Another is experiential value, by encountering something or someone, especially through love. And third is attitudinal value, by choosing our attitude toward unavoidable suffering. Frankl's work tells us that even when all other forms of motivation fail, when our goals are impossible and our basic needs are unmet, the search for meaning remains. It's the ultimate source of human resilience. So, what have we discovered? We've learned that motivation is not a simple lever. It's a complex tapestry woven from our beliefs, our values, our needs, and our environment. The philosophers gave us the grand philosophical blueprint, and modern psychology has provided the empirical data and the tools to make it actionable. We've explored why we get stuck, dissected the philosophical origins of human drive, and seen how ancient wisdom finds its echo in modern science. Now we're going to put it all together. This is your personal motivational blueprint, a user's guide to moving from intention to action, from apathy to purpose. It's grounded in the idea that you don't wait for motivation to strike, you build it step by step with your own choices. Strategy 1, reconnect with your values and purpose. The first step is to get clear on your why. Ancient philosophers knew this was non-negotiable. Aristotle insisted that action is aimed at a perceived good, and Seneca declared, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." Modern psychology, specifically self-determination theory, confirms this. Our intrinsic motivation flourishes when we act in alignment with our core values. So your actionable step, take out a pen and paper. Write down 3 to 5 things you value most in your life. Things like family, creativity, service to others, or personal growth. Then look at your daily to-do list. Where's the mismatch? When your actions don't align with what you value, motivation will leak away. By consciously choosing actions that serve your deepest values, you are fueling your inner fire. Strategy 2, embrace adversity as a tool for growth. Marcus Aurelius taught, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. They saw that every obstacle was an opportunity to practice virtue and build resilience. Modern psychology calls this a growth mindset. Instead of viewing a setback as evidence of your weakness, a person with a growth mindset sees it as a challenge to be overcome, a lesson to be learned. So your step, the next time you face a problem, a tough project at work, a conflict with a friend, a financial setback, don't complain. Instead, ask yourself, what does this obstacle allow me to practice? Does it allow me to practice patience, resourcefulness, empathy? By reframing the problem as a training exercise, you shift from a victim of circumstance to an active participant in your own growth. Strategy 3, build your habits, build your character. Aristotle famously said, "Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit." He understood that a virtuous character isn't a gift. It's the outcome of repeated, deliberate actions. This is a central thesis of today's behavioral science. As James Clear reminds us, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. It's not about being a perfect person. It's about having a system that makes good habits easy and bad habits difficult. Your action step: don't try to change your entire life at once. Instead, focus on one small atomic habit. If you want to be a writer, don't aim to write a novel. Aim to write one paragraph a day. If you want to be more fit, just aim to put on your running shoes. Each small, consistent action builds a foundation of self-trust and momentum that will carry you forward. Strategy 4, master your inner dialogue. Plato said that thinking is the talking of the soul with itself. The Stoics trained themselves to monitor and correct this internal conversation, knowing that their judgments, not events, were the source of their pain. Marcus Aurelius' advice, "You have the power over your mind, not outside events," is a direct command to do just this. So your step: practice radical self-awareness. When you feel a wave of demotivation or anxiety, pause and ask yourself, what is the specific thought I'm having right now? Is it, "I'm not good enough"? Is it, "This is too hard"? Once you've identified it, challenge it. Is it true? Is there another way to see this? By consciously reframing your thoughts, you're taking back control and directing your inner energy. And last, embrace the power of a growth mindset. Nietzsche's will to power was his term for our drive to overcome ourselves. It's a dynamic, relentless pursuit of growth. This idea is now a fundamental tenet of psychology. So your step: when a task feels daunting and you hear that voice saying, "I can't do this," rephrase it with the word "yet." I can't do this yet. This simple shift in language transforms a fixed mindset into a growth mindset. It opens the door to possibility, turning a seemingly impossible goal into a temporary challenge. These 5 strategies are not magic. They're not a secret formula for constant motivation. They're a process grounded in values, built by decisions, sustained by habits, and restored by reframing adversity as fuel. Remember, the philosophers and psychologists we've discussed all sought meaning, struggled with despair, and urged themselves toward the good. Their journeys and the insights of science remind us that motivation is ours to create, lose, and regain as often as we dare. So as you go about your day, ask yourself, what tiny action, what courageous choice can you make in the next hour? What story of motivation will you write? Not someday, but today. Make sure you subscribe, and until next time, thank you for listening.